Hello, and welcome to my Interpersonal Communication Project for Human Services 508, Section D04. As we go to the second slide here, I'd like to give a brief introduction of myself. My name is Brittany Smith. I'm 22 years old. I currently live in Lynchburg, Virginia, and I currently work for Liberty University Online as an academic advisor. Next slide. The objectives of this project are to define my overarching goal, describe how my background and behavioral blend have influenced my conversation, to define potential barriers in my interpersonal context and find the solution to those barriers, and to create a plan of action to improve my interpersonal communication. Next slide. What is interpersonal communication? Stewart describes interpersonal communication as a subset of communication that includes collaboration, choices, culture, identities, conversation, and nexting. Part of interpersonal communication is being supportive with your communication style. According to Varatanen and Isolatus, supportive communication is the manifestation of the essence of social support and the interpersonal relationships. Next slide. My overarching goals are to improve my listening skills so that I am not only hearing but listening and interpreting as well, to have open and honest communication to those closest to me, and to recognize my communication barriers and be able to address those openly. Next slide. Enlarging the conversation. What enlarging the conversation means to me is to bring the most efficient and effective communication to the receiver and providing the listening/receiver with a message that cannot be misunderstood. Next slide. What my behavioral blend says about me. Well, earlier in the semester, I took a survey through Uniquely You, and I learned that I am people-oriented but prefer one-on-one interactions instead of large groups. I don't express my feelings. I can be passive, and I often do not speak out. Now, like everything, I think it depends on the context and the situation, but I think that Uniquely You had a very good idea when it comes to how I interact with others. One thing that I did really like about Uniquely You is that it gave me the opinion of what others think about me. A lot of times when it comes to your friends and your family, they're not going to give you anything. They don't want to hurt you. They don't want to hurt your feelings, so they're not going to tell you your bad qualities. Well, according to Uniquely You, people see me as knowledgeable and intelligent, a person that goes by the book, easygoing, kind and nice, and compliant. Now, the influence of my behavior blend also has positive and negatives when it comes to how people view me. People view me as a person that knows what she's talking about, so they come to me for advice. This is a positive. Other positives include friends feel that I'm a loyal friend and a good listener. People feel that they can be open in their communication with me because I'm not judgmental. Negatives are that people seem to see me as a person that cannot just let loose and have fun because I do always follow the rules or try to follow the rules. And I usually wait for people to tell me what should be done, so I'm not much of a leader in some aspects. And I do tend to be submissive, which allows others to lead the conversation when I'm very capable of leading the conversation myself. Next slide. Potential barriers to my communication. Now, before I go into this, I do want to share a quote with you that really helped me throughout this semester. According to Burley Allen, effective listening involves not only tuning into others, but tuning into ourselves. And to me, I completely 100% agree with it because in order to get to know others, you really do have to know yourself. One communication barrier that I found that I face every day is hearing what I want to hear. When a listener is listening for certain things, they cannot get the full picture, and I'm no different. So to avoid this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop being so selective and truly listen to the sender of the message. Next slide. Bias listening. When we label the information ahead of time, we cannot listen effectively. I'm also guilty of being a biased listener at times. So to stop doing this, I'm going to stop allowing one negative communication experience to dictate the results of another communication experience. Next slide. Emotions. When we listen with our emotions, we put up this filter that we're only listening for key words sometimes. So when we allow our emotions to get involved, we cannot listen to the message because our mind is already full of our own thoughts and our own emotions. So to avoid this, I've decided not to allow my emotions to get into my conversations. I will use a filter for my emotions so that they do not affect the conversations that I have with others. Next slide. Noise pollution. When we talk about noise pollution, it's important to realize that there are internal noises and external noises. An internal noise is defined by Burley Allen as what happens physically that influences an individual's listening efficiency. Examples of internal noise include fatigue, personal problems, internal thoughts such as daydreams, and self-consciousness. Next slide. Noise pollution continued. I want to get into the external noises. External noises are distractions that may be beyond the listener's control. Examples of external noise include traffic, talkers' appearance or mannerisms, if they move their hands a lot when they speak or if they make funny faces, room temperature, it could be too hot or too cold, or a ringing phone. Next slide. What solutions I've come up with, I'm going to give the speaker my undivided attention. I'm not going to let emotions creep into my mind. I'm going to stay focused on the issues at hand and engage in the conversation if I feel like I'm losing focus. I also would like to move to another location if it's something that I can prevent by going indoors. Also, by staying involved in the conversation, I intend to ask a lot more questions than I usually do. Also, I'm not going to make judgments about the speaker. Just because they may not look the part, that doesn't mean that they don't know what they're talking about. Next slide. My plan of action. In order to achieve my overarching goal, I have decided to make the following changes. I will implement mindful listening. Concentration is key to performing any meaningful activity well, according to Stewart. I completely agree with this. You have to be mindful in what you're doing. You have to realize what you're doing and have a plan of action with it. Stay focused. I will ask questions to clarify any confusion. As a technique, interrupting reminds us that the talker-listening relationship is like a dance. You have to give and you have to take. There's a leader and there's a follower. And the same is true when it comes to communication. This quote from Peterson really helped me throughout the semester to realize where I'm messing up in a lot of my communication situations. Next slide. I will be more empathetic to those that I listen to. According to Stewart, when a person is listening empathetically, he or she is receptive or sensitive to the full range of characteristics shared by the other person. As part of my empathetic listening, I will learn to focus, encourage, and reflect in my communication with others. According to the journal article by Gerhardt and Bodie, individuals who sense, process, and respond in more empathetic ways are likely more competent communicators in general. And I want to be the best communicator that I can be, so I'm definitely going to try to be more empathetic. Well, that's the end of my interpersonal communication project. I did learn a lot, and I really hope that you did too. Thank you for watching.